Hello there, and welcome to our week 3. It's nice to, be back again and bring you a new topic to discuss for this week. And I hope and I pray that you will sit through our discussion and you'll have something to take home with you at the end of our session today. Okay? Now, to those who have just joined us, okay, in this video lecture, this is already our third topic for discussion. Okay, last week or several weeks ago, we were talking about the basics of BPM, understanding how BPM works, and the week after that, we were talking about how to get started with BPM. Okay, so this week, the third week, we are going to talk about how you can put business process management to work for your organization. All right. So the title of our discussion for this week is entitled "Putting BPM to Work for Your Organization." Uh, Now, you have to understand that when you want to put a business process management to work in your organization, you need to do a certain amount of planning. All right. So planning starts the ball rolling. Okay. Now in this lesson, you will see how to do planning, how planning is necessary to get your BPM project off the ground, and also you will get an introduction on the basic steps of building your BPM solution. And also we will be talking about how you can see the importance of making sure that you have fully documented your business processes in the integration of BPM. Okay, now for this discussion, we will only be talking or we'll be only discussing 3 items. Okay, and very important items. We'll be talking about planning, how planning will really help you get your BPM off the ground. Okay, in the planning stage, we'll be talking about how you can choose the correct project or business process for your BPM, how you can sell your BPM to your management, and at the same time, how you can sell your BPM to your colleagues, right? So BPM is not just a one-sided love affair, as we can say. It's actually it's a whole organizational endeavor. Okay, so but that is under planning stage. Then we will also be talking, the second topic that we'll be talking about in this video lecture is how you can build a BPM solution. Okay, what is a typical business process management life cycle? We're going to talk about that. And also we'll be talking about what are the resources that you might be needing to integrate BPM in your organization. Okay, and the last topic that we're going to talk about in this video lecture is how you can document your process. Okay, documenting is very important. You will see later the effect or the impact of documentation in your BPM. Okay, how documenting changes the way you drive your business, how you can understand the BPM architecture, and how you can do your documentation processes. Okay, in the BPM, and at the same time, how you can probably do your process simulation before you launch or you go live with your BPM. Okay, so we have a very interesting discussion in this video lecture, and I hope and I pray that you'll give your time and your ears, your eyes to what our discussion will be, so that at the end of it all, you can learn a little, become mature a little, and become a professional a little bit. Okay, in terms of the course and business process management. All right, so if you are ready, let's proceed with our discussion. Alright, so let's begin with our discussion. Our lesson number 3 today is entitled Putting BPM to Work for Your Organizations. So, to begin with, now you have to put business process management, or what we call BPM, to work in your organization. You need to do a certain amount of planning, with the emphasis here, ladies and gentlemen, on a certain amount of planning. As with any large change, being prepared makes all the difference in how successful a project will ultimately be. Now, in addition, right, you don't make the decision to add BPM in a vacuum. That's correct, right? You just don't, you wake up one day and say, let's start with BPM in our business. Rather, you need to have your management team and your colleagues on board. Aside from, just deciding right away on doing BPM, you also have to make sure that the entire management team, from the top level to the middle level down to the lower level, and also your colleagues horizontally, will be amenable, or shall we say, will be on board in this endeavor. Okay? Now, you have to understand at the same time that the management team and your colleagues will be the missing pieces of your puzzle when you're implementing BPM, right? So that's the whole idea, that you don't implement BPM in a vacuum, but rather it is a organization-wide endeavor. Okay? So anyway, in this lesson, we will be discussing how planning is necessary to get the BPM project off the ground. We will also discuss the basic steps of building a BPM solution, and we will also discuss the importance of making sure of fully documenting the process. So we will be looking at these topics as we go along. So let's jump right away. The first step in implementing your BPM is plan, plan, plan. Okay? So you don't have to really emphasize that. That's already, 3 times repeated. Plan is very important, right? The key to a BPM success is planning. Okay? Of course, you want your BPM project to be a success, right? Who among you here doesn't want your BPM to be successful? None, right? So you wouldn't waste your time trying to develop a project otherwise. Okay, so it's very common sense that you need to plan in every endeavor that you do, even in your personal or business life. Planning is important. Not every project is successful, right? And in BPM, it's not even an exception. Okay, when it comes to project management. Now, what is the reason? No? So, any organization that begins a BPM project usually has high hopes for its success. But there are a number of things that can derail a project. Okay, so no matter how well we plan sometimes, we have to always look on the other aspect, that a project may derail, may incur delays, okay, or it may not even prosper, right? Now, here are some of the reasons what can derail a project. Okay, so number 1, a project may be derailed in BPM if your assumption is that BPM is all about technology. Okay, BPM is a generic term for what we call techniques, methodologies, and approaches that are applied with the objective of achieving process improvement and increasing efficiency. Okay, so in this definition alone, we are looking at the BPM as not all about technology, but rather its techniques, its methodologies, its approaches. Though it is backed by an entire industry of software, also with a very impressive array of products, BPM goes beyond the use of technology to automate your processes. People and processes are crucial to implementing BPM technology, which is the layer that facilitates the process improvement, but should not be the reason for change. Okay, so again, people and processes are very important. Although technology is the layer that facilitates this, improvement, but we should not always think of technology as the main basis as why BPM should be implemented. So when you assume that BPM is all about technology, you should look at the two contexts before using technology as your solution. Okay, number one, you should understand the problem you're trying to solve. Okay, will it really is the problem really technology based 100%? Okay, at the same time, you need to assess the viable solution options. Okay, what are my available options when solving this problem, rather than jump right away into technology and use that as your ace in thinking that that is the solution to the problem. Okay, understand that automating a mess is almost guaranteed to result in a mess. Okay, for us in technology, we always have the saying GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. Okay, no matter how intelligent the machines are, the computers are, if we humans feed it with garbage, we don't expect for the machines to streamline it for us. So that's why that's the whole idea of garbage in, garbage out. Same with the statement. When you automate a mess, it's almost guaranteed that it will result in a mess. So don't expect that you'll have a good BPM environment if you have not thought of it clearly. Do you understand? Okay. Continue. Once the business has decided that implementing a business process management system is the way to go, you need to understand this. Number one, it is wise to take some time to understand the software landscape instead of jumping on the bandwagon. So you need to look at the software requirements that you need. It is also wise to understand that proposing a solution may not produce the results seen in other organizations. Well, the fact that a software solution is popular, okay, so or it has solved a similar problem in other organizations, well, it does not mean that it is a one-size-fits-all solution to your own unique business problems. Do you understand this? Just because that software worked with the other company doesn't mean that it will work for you if you did not do your homework, and that is planning for the use of this software. Okay, so those two important things that you need to consider is that you need to understand the software landscape and understand that the solution may not produce the same result with others. Okay, so another reason, so number one is when you assume that BPM is all about technology. The second reason is when you devote little or no time to analysis. That's what I was referring to earlier. So simply automating a process the way it is without attempting to understand how it works, analyze it, and design it for future improvement will not bring about many benefits. Okay? So you need to understand how the process works. You need to analyze how the process works. You need to design what new process or improvement that you will need so that it can bring benefits for your company. Okay? So another hindrance, all right, when a BPM project fails is when existing processes should be analyzed to identify where issues and opportunities lie fails, right? So you fail to identify, you fail to analyze the issues. what is the importance of this is that when you analyze existing processes, when you identify issues, okay, this will help to determine whether or not such processes will benefit from the automation. It's just like you just don't jump right away without thinking whether it will help the business or not. Now, if you launch a BPM project without incorporating the analysis phase, you may end up repeating old mistakes, or worse still, make bad situation worse. Did you get this statement? Again, let me repeat that for you. If you launch a BPM project without incorporating the analysis phase, you may end up repeating old mistakes, or worse, still make bad situation worse. Doesn't help you. It will just make things worse. Okay? The third reason why a BPM project may fail is that you're not assessing your options. It is always advisable to conduct a feasibility study before launching your BPM project. Okay? Why is that so? Because a feasibility study will help you answer these key questions. Number 1, what other options do you have? Number 2, why choose BPM over other alternatives? And number 3, why not launch an ECM project instead? Okay, let's look at these questions. Number 1, the options. In doing feasibility study, you will have now a clearer picture of what your options will be. Alright, if I take door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3, and I just don't decide at a whim which door to take. Okay, so I have to study that. That's what feasibility studies are for. Why choose the BPM over alternatives? Again, BPM is just one of the alternatives. You'll have to look at other alternatives for you to study and to analyze before you can come up with your decision. Because maybe sometimes you just don't really, you might not need a BPM in your business, in your organization, right? All you need is to study how this alternative works. All right, like for example, on the third question, why not launch an ECM project instead? ECM stands for Enterprise Content Management, right? So ECM is a strategy. It's also another method, just like your BPM, right? It's also a strategy. It's also a method. It's also a tool used to capture, manage, store, preserve, and deliver content and documents related to organizational processes. So ECM is more on the following of the document trail. Okay, it is the architecture that glues your documents and business content together. Making them searchable, explorable, organized, and ultimately meaningful. Now you'll have to ask yourself, do I really need BPM at this point in time, or can I go with ECM? So this is what assessing your options mean. Now, even if you have decided that BPM is a way to go, a feasibility study will still help you clarify what BPM approach to adapt. Okay, so it's very important. You might ask, so how can we adapt, or what BPM approach should we adopt? So you have either, for example, you have the BPE, or the Business Process Engineering, or you could also have the continuous improvement process. Now, when we talk about business process engineering, this refers to the study of business processes. Okay, so you can improve or streamline for optimum efficiency in terms of both performance and your cost. In terms of CIP, or continual improvement process, this is an ongoing effort to improve products, services, or processes, and these efforts can seek incremental improvement over time, or what we call breakthrough improvement, all at once. So continuous improvement would refer to the constant looking at your processes and the tweaking and the improvement. That's why it's called also an incremental improvement process, because Every time you see something that needs to be improved, you can right away improve it. That's what continuous improvement process is all about. Okay. Furthermore, when you're not assessing your options, your BPM project should be based on a well-researched business case. Okay, with the emphasis on a well-researched business case. Now, this allows your business to make a well-informed decision on what approach to take and the benefits to expect. So, there are a lot of well-researched business cases out there on the internet, real-time or actual business, that can help you decide, what approach that you're going to take and the benefits that you need to expect. So, really, number 3 is very important so that you can get your BPM off the ground, right? So, assess your options well. The fourth reason why a project may fail is not focusing on value. What is this? Well, it can be tempting to go on a process automation where you automate any manual process that causes you to cringe, right? So, you see a process, that's not gonna work, let's automate that, okay? In one case, for example, we have this process on asking our teachers to list all their seminars attended. Can we do that on a simple approach? Yes, one approach would be using Excel. We can ask them to fill out an Excel form of their seminars attended. Or, kind of tempting, you can create an automated process that could actually ask the teachers to log in, to record, to upload their certificates. You get the point here, okay? Now, between simplicity and software development, for example, some of these approaches may result in what we call delayed business returns, right? So, for example, it would take time for me to develop my system. So what happens now? Instead of getting the returns real time, it may get delayed because I need to wait for my software to be finished. I have to wait for my software to be tested, right? Or at the same time, the automated system that I will generate little or no business value at all. Okay, so everything in business should have a value. So if I can get the data, right away versus getting the data a week from now, then there's no value in that. Okay. Also, automating a system or a process without focusing on its value may cause the business to lose patience. Alright, so that's also another thing that you need to watch out for. And the fourth one is, once the business loses patience, it may divert its scarce resources elsewhere. So that's gonna be an issue now. If you don't know how to look at the value of the process, you cannot look at the value of how things are done, then say goodbye to your resources. The business doesn't have the patience probably to wait for you to validate what you have done simply by just putting their resources somewhere else. So that's gonna be an issue. BPM projects, like any other project, should be value driven. What are the value that the business can get out of this? Should we implement this? It's always that big question there. The fifth reason is inadequate executive involvement. Remember when I said earlier, BPM is a holistic process or approach that involves all your organization's stakeholders, right? So as with most projects, if the guys at the top do not believe in what you can do or what the BPM can offer the business, then your BPM initiative won't get very far. Okay? You have to involve the powerhouse of the organization. Why? Because involving them can go a long way in ensuring that your stakeholders will show the involvement and the commitment necessary for your success. So that's plain, you know, plain and simple common sense, right? Involve everyone so you will know what you're going to get, rather than, let only a few people understand that, and the whole organization doesn't benefit from it. Okay. The sixth one is that inadequate project planning. What is this? Inadequate planning can cause an early demise of anticipated benefits. Okay, so you don't plan well, don't expect for a good return on your investment. Not having a well-defined plan for the project can easily lead to a situation where analysis and development continue without any definite time frame. So it's like in software development, well, you should know this. You should be able to define where it should begin and where it should end. In your capstone, I'm sure you're going to be making your capstone in a few months from now. You will be asked to identify your scope and limitation. This is what it's all about, scope and limitation. Because if you don't identify your scope, you don't put limitations as to what your system will only cater or carry, that's gonna be a problem, because now your development will just continue without any definite time frame when, where, and how it will stop. Trust me on that, right? That's simple software development scenarios. Okay, so you need to plan. So you need to plan based on your scope, on your budget, on your time. Okay, these three should be adequately planned to ensure that the business gets the desired benefits. Right? Scope and limitation, your budget, and time. It's very important. Number 7 is when you forget to manage change. BPM is not about technology. It's all about change, according to Gartner research. Right? How can you manage good BPM? Well, effective change management starts and ends with good communication. You need to communicate. Okay? For any process you decide to improve, make it a must to communicate to everyone in all levels the benefits that it will bring. So, an organization automated process within a business unit due to change in policy, right? So, for example, if only one member of the management team knew about this change, and he has, not echoed this to the entire department or management team, the result is that, plain and simple, the others are unaware. And when the others are unaware of it, how can they approve the change that you want to instill in the organization? Process has to be cancelled despite, the man hours that had been invested. How can you let them agree on the plan if they themselves didn't know about the plan? So you have to manage that. There is a need to organize presentations to inform the management team of the processes identified for improvement before any work done. Okay? What does it mean in layman's term? Well, simply put, you need to prepare your presentation of what these changes will be, okay, before they can go to work. Okay? Why? Because processes should continue. Okay, look at this. Processes should continue to be monitored, measured, updated, and improved long after they have been automated. So you have an automated project, but still, for the company or the organization to get what we call positive reviews, right? Long after they have been automated, you still have to monitor the progress or the process. You need to measure the process. You need to update the process, and you need to improve those processes. It's very important. Business process management is not a one-off initiative. It's not a one-time, big-time endeavor for the organization, but rather it is a mindset that should be nurtured within the organization. Knowing what can go wrong on your BPM journey will help you manage any accompanying risks and opportunities. The more you know what will happen in your BPM journey, the more you can, manage the risk and opportunities that goes with it. Upfront planning needs to take each of these elements into account to ensure their success. Okay, so that's very important. So these are the 7 things of why projects may fail, but I'm very sure with all of this you can always go back to these 7 items and review where you are at right now in your organization. Okay, next, so how do you choose the correct BPM project? Well, simply put, you need to begin by doing what we call process analysis. So you can tell which processes benefit the most from the implementation of your BPM. Okay, so process analysis. We'll go deeper into that as we go along. As you do your analysis, you may discover that you are developing a list of processes that needs to be prioritized to determine where to begin your project. Okay, so you need to, it's like a checklist of your groceries, where you should begin. Now you might ask, so what is requirements? Okay, document, or what is a process analysis? Well, let's go there. Requirements documents is basically your communication that contains the aims of the project, right? in a clear, concise manner, right? So that everybody knows that what you're going to do. Now, process analysis, on the other hand, is a method used to understand a process and improve the efficiency. So your requirements is what are we going to do. It's like a checklist of what we're going to do so we can improve the process. Wherein process analysis is basically understanding the process and how you can further improve its efficiency. It looks at the steps. It looks at the parties involved in a specific process as well as the information exchange. So as you're working on your process analysis, you will explore different variants to visualize potential ways that can change the processes. Remember, one of the key drivers for implementing BPM is to improve the processes. So that's very important. Just because something was always done in a certain way doesn't mean that it is the best way, the most efficient way, or the logical way to do things. So remember that phrase. So what do we consider when choosing a BPM solution? So there are 6 things that you need to consider when you choose a BPM solution. Number 1, feature rich isn't necessarily better. Why? Well, the thing is, if you pick a software that offers adequate features to meet your requirements, that's better. Okay? You don't have to choose a system with so many features that you will be only using 1 or 2 of them, right? So that you can address your issues in the business. It's like overestimation of your requirements. Okay, so you buy so much features. Pick a cloud-based tool. Why? Because you choose a more robust BPM software that is equipped with a highly secure cloud environment that gives you all the advantages of a cloud system without the security vulnerabilities. Okay? In cloud environment, you don't have to look at how things are done anymore, but rather Okay, you just implement the things that you need to be to have it implemented, and let the the cloud environment, the cloud management, well, give you the updates. Okay, so the third thing to consider when you're choosing a BPM solution is make your customer support a priority. So you need to read up customer reviews and testimonies and understand to what extent the BPM vendor extends support before you seal the deal. Okay, so that's very important. Then the fourth one is that you integrate with your existing framework. What is that? What you need is a BPM software that seamlessly integrates with your system to provide a tangible solution. Okay, so enterprise, might move between different systems. Okay, so you might have a dozen different tools that you bring in on the table so that it can ease up your burden in your business operation. Well, the last thing that you want to do is, of course, you end up, doing several manual data transfers between your legacy system and your desired system, which oftentimes bring confusion. Okay, so if you don't integrate it seamlessly within your existing software environment. Then we have usability over functionality. What is this? You need to choose a BPM that enables simple drag and drop functionality to build workflows and forms. Okay. If we have a lab class, probably we will be using this kind of tools. You don't really have to have a hard time learning about it, but rather, consider or focus more on the usability and functionality of the system, and that is, considering the drag and drop factor. Okay. Lastly, things to consider when choosing a BPM solution is about responsiveness and compatibility. Okay, you have to understand that everyone is mobile, and so should your enterprise. Okay, mobility is the key to staying connected with your customers all times. Alright, so that is how we consider things when choosing a BPM solution. Okay, so I hope you can zero in on how you can choose the BPM that you need to implement. Okay, now choosing a BPM solution is one of the areas. The second one, when we're choosing a BPM solution, is how are you going to sell it to your management? How? Selling BPM to management may be largely a matter of showing the economic value of the BPM to the organization. Okay? When we talk about economic values, we are referring to these things. Okay? When we talk about better economic value, we have lower costs, higher revenues, motivated employees, and happier customers. These are the values that most business aim for or look for. Right? Lower cost, higher revenues, motivated employees, happier customers. Okay, so that's your economic value. The most dramatic examples of economic value driven by process improvement come from the companies that led the adoption of what we call the Six Sigma or the Lean Six Sigma methodologies. I'll walk you through these two methodologies, but I'll try my best to simplify it for you, okay? So you won't have a hard time understanding it. Okay, let's talk about Six Sigma. 4 things that we need to know about Six Sigma. Number 1, Six Sigma is a quality control methodology developed in 1986 by Motorola. Okay, it's a quality control. Okay. Second, Six Sigma is a method that uses data-driven review to limit mistakes or defects in a corporate or business process. Okay? So eliminate the mistakes or the defects. Third, Six Sigma emphasizes cycle time improvement while at the same time reducing manufacturing defects to a level of no more than 3.4 occurrences per million units or events. Okay, so you could imagine that, no? 3.4 out of a million defects. And Six Sigma is a method to work faster with fewer mistakes. So Six Sigma points to the fact that mathematically it would take a 6 standard deviation event from the mean for an error to happen. What is that statistically? Okay, I'll show you later. I'll try to explain it as simple as I can. Okay, now because only 3.4, remember 3.4 occurrences, and that is we're talking about randomly, right? Occurrence. Because of this 3.4 out of a million randomly distributed events along the bell curve, it would fall outside already of the 6 standard deviations, where 6 sigma stands for, or when we talk about sigma, it means standard deviation. Okay, to give you an idea, that is the symbol of sigma there, the top. It's like a circle or a ring with a tail, right? That's a sigma. So when we talk about 6 sigma, okay, this refers to that tiny area, under that bell curve. So this is our bell curve now. Okay, the standard is 0 there, the highest point, and then it is going to move left or right, 6 sigma, those 6 steps to the standard deviation. So that arrow that you see on your screen represents already the probability of producing a defect, which is actually close to nil. Right? So in short, 6 sigma is all about eliminating defects within the organization. How about lean 6 sigma? Well, you know what 6 sigma is. Lean, on the other hand, is a team-focused managerial approach that seeks to improve performance by eliminating waste and defects. So it's like 6 sigma, but lean is more on team-focused, okay, approach. It's more on people approach. It combines the 6 sigma methods and the tools that lean manufacturing makes use, what we call the lean enterprise philosophy. Lean 6 sigma strives to eliminate waste of physical resources, time, effort, and talent while assuring quality in production and organizational processes. Okay, so eliminate the waste of physical resources, the waste of time, waste of effort, waste of talent. That is what lean is all about. Simply put, under the tenets of lean 6 sigma, any use of resources that doesn't create value for the end customer is considered a waste and should be eliminated. Okay, so that is what lean 6 sigma is all about. So, how do you sell your BPM to your management? Number 1, focus on your customers' problems first, your solution second. So make sure you understand the problems of your audience, okay, what they are experiencing, what they are going through. Relate how BPM will help them overcome the challenges they are currently encountering. So focus on your customer, focus on your problem later. Second, find out who the decision makers and the influencers are. Very important that you need to know who will be the ones who will drive the change in the organization. Who are the decision makers? Okay? So because, these people can make or break the process within the organization. On the other hand, the influencers will have a say in the final outcome and could help tip the balance from a yes or a no. Okay, so in our notes, it's not here in our presentation. I've already broke broken down, okay, the different selling points of BPM to the management. Okay, the more comprehensive definition, it's in our notes. Speak in the language your audience understand. The key is to focus on explaining in plain English how will BPM get them from point A to point B. Simple as that. Like myself, I don't really need a lot of explanation. All you have to do is tell me how to get from this point to that point. Okay, and if there are any tips, fine. If not, well, probably I'll find it, but I'll have to go through it the hard way first. Okay, so that's very important. When they say, there's a say that goes, when in doubt, use in plain English. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand how BPM works. And fourth item is that close the deal, but don't forget to build a relationship. Okay, what does it mean? If you work hard to make your customers happy, the word will spread out and you'll soon have different parts of the business banging down the door for a little piece of business process management pie. Alright? So if the customers are happy, then there's no point for you to, really struggle in the implementation of the BPM. Okay? Because once the management sees that your customers are happy, eventually they will follow through. Now, how do you sell your BPM to your colleagues? Getting management on board is only the first step. You also need to sell your BPM project to your colleagues. Now, your colleagues are interested in the basic operational value proposition of BPM, which is the ability to process more with less effort and higher quality, the ability to generate more outputs with minimal or zero defects. Okay, so that is where your colleagues will come in. Most processes have significant waste because of manual effort. Do you agree with that? Yes. In a manual environment, wastage is always an issue, right? For handoffs between departments, the general's inability to monitor overall progress, that's gonna be an issue. Okay. So the initial step in deploying a BPM solution eliminates the problems and results in real quantifiable benefits. Okay? If you just know how to make use of, creating the operational value proposition for your BPM. So after efficiency improvements, after you have improved the way you do things, some of the largest gains to be realized from BPM are typically in making processes more effective. So the more the processes are effective, okay, the more gain you will have in your organization. Your colleagues are also interested in the agility that the BPM provides. In any modern organization, the ability to change quickly is very important. Often it is driven by new opportunities, but in some cases, new regulations require changes in the processes. But regardless of the reasons for the changes, your colleagues will appreciate the fact that BPM provides them access to quickly adapt processes as the need arises. So what are your selling points to your colleagues? Communicate your process improvement initiatives. Very important. They should be able to know how to use a variety of vehicles to communicate your idea. That is from, using emails to newsletter articles to luncheon room posters, or just simply maintaining a consistent communication. That's very important. Second selling point is recognize the effort of your process heroes. That can mean instituting easy to run acknowledgments like users of the month, most innovative improvement suggestion, right? So if your employees are engaged and their efforts are also being evaluated, then there's going to be a recognition of the efforts of your employees. The third selling point of your BPM to your colleagues is, you upskill your employees, train your staff. Okay, right from the start, you need to train your staff as part of the new hire induction, so that your expectations around the process management discipline, as well as their expectations, are also clear. Make sure that your employees are well taken care of in terms of their skills, in terms of their abilities, their capabilities, right? So that you can be clear of what you will expect as a manager and what they will expect as a worker within the organization. Okay, so upskill their talents. And the fourth one is, promote having fun. Okay, make an effort to proactively address the challenge in a fun way. Many companies have appealed to people's competitive instincts by holding competitions both within the teams and across the entire organization. It's very important. Now, in continuation, how do you sell BPM to your colleagues? Lead from the front. What does it mean? It is important not just to involve the organization's leadership team in the process improvement. Okay? At the same time, make sure that the support of the upper management, okay, is visible all throughout the entire transition phase of your BPM. Right? You're not the one who's running the show. It's basically everybody with their hands on the project. Okay, so that is very important. Encourage collaboration. Process improvement is a team effort. As I have said, this is not a one-man show, but rather it's a team effort. So it is essential to let everyone know, quote and unquote, we are in this together. Okay. Hold cross-functional process improvement brainstorming. Generate sessions that will encourage them to voice out their sentiments. Get the teams thinking outside of the box about process improvement. So it's basically trying to get everyone on board, all right, in the business process change. Integrate into business as usual. What does this mean? To drive process usage, some business host essential documents that everyone needs to access, making them available only in their business process management tools. It means that anytime they need help, anytime they want to access help, they can actually get it right away. Okay, it's like they don't have to wait tomorrow. Okay? That's why integrate it into a business as usual, meaning in the process. It's like, you're online and then you need help. You just go to the internet, browse for that help, and you get the answers. There's no time for delay, because delay means what? Again, delay is not a good business practice. So always it should be on time, on demand, on deliverable. Okay? Make staff accountable. Set up a dedicated time slot for completing process-related tasks by providing guidelines for dealing with feedbacks, improvement suggestions, including suggested response times from process owners. In short, guys, give them time to work. Give them time, if it's a food thing, give them time to chew it and to savor the food. That is what it means. When you make your staff accountable, you're trying to let them complete their work first before you give them or hand them in a new set of work rules. Okay, so it's very important that the staff should be able to have enough time to complete their processes or to complete their tasks from different process owners. Lastly, understand there will always be room for improvement. As we have said at the beginning of this session, BPM is not a one-time, big-time business process improvement scheme. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes a lot of energy. Okay? And in spite of this, you should be able to be open to listen to your user suggestions, listen to your users' concerns by asking their opinions, by asking their sentiments. Businesses should consider conducting their own surveys to hear what frontline teams experience and identify improvement opportunities. Right? Understand that there will always be room for improvement. The only time you will become obsolete in your field or in any other field or endeavor is the time when you don't think that there is still room for improvement. Right? So, in your career someday, understand that you need to have a room for improvement. Okay? So, third topic is how can we build a BPM solution? How to build. While all organizations, irrespective of size, have processes that can be improved upon, many of them don't have access to process expertise. Okay? What does it mean? It means that in spite that they understand what processes needs to be improved, they still have this limitation of, yes, I know this will be improved, but what tool, what will I use to improve this? Right? The access to process expertise is still an issue. Business process management tools can help, but without a basic understanding, even the most intuitive software won't make sense. Again, garbage in, garbage out. Knowing what constitutes a robust BPM practice can help you make more informed decisions in the pursuit of heightened process efficiency. And a good starting point on how to understand how to implement the BPM in the organization is to understand first how a typical BPM life cycle works. Okay, are you ready? Okay, so this is what the BPM life cycle is all about. There are 6 steps or phases. We have assess, design, model, implement, monitor, and modify. Let's talk first about assessment. When you assess, you begin by understanding where the process is currently. Where are we at right now? Include establishing and documenting what occurs with the process, who is responsible for the task, what is the length of time that the process requires, and how often the process is running. So here you can see the 3 components of assessment: the what, the who, the how. Okay? Then after that, you need to sketch the process flow in its current state and then enable the stakeholders to review the data. That is very important because reviewing is also part of assessing. Okay? So once they see the flow, where the flow is at right now, the stakeholders will be able to trace and then verify and review the data. Of course, don't forget to include errors and potential consequences to show the business impact. Okay, so that's how you assess the who, the what, the why, the how, right? and then review, and then look for errors and consequences. Second phase of BPM is design. A valuable design reduces problems. Yes, yes. In the process life cycle, and eventually, right, reducing the problem is one aspect. Eventually, your design would be able to offer accuracy and efficiency. In the design stage or phase, you need to present multiple designs to stakeholders, to test with data, and to weigh in on the most option is generally the most effective option. So here, guys, you can see, you just don't make one design, that's it. In software development, it takes a lot of effort to really streamline that design. Sometimes we would go back to the drawing board several times simply just to create multiple designs. Use process maps to form ideas and designing solutions that reduce the number of problems over the life cycle of the process. Okay, these process maps are very important because now they teach you the flow. Okay, it gives you an idea of where you get stuck up, where is there a bottleneck, where is there or what process is faster than the other processes. Okay, so that is what the process maps is all about. If we're in the laboratory, we would also be designing process maps at this point in time. Okay. The third is, of course, you model. In this phase, designs are tested with what we call predictive data. What is predictive data? Well, predictive data is basically the use of data, then include statistical algorithms and machine learning techniques to identify the likelihood of future outcome based on that data. So you're creating a prediction out of the data that you have now with the use of statistics and machine learning. The goal is to go beyond knowing what has happened, right? What happened in the past, what has happened in the past, okay? But also at the same time, to be able to provide the best assessment of what will happen in the future. Wow, it's nice, right? That is what predictive data is all about. Looking at the data, okay, determine how it went in the past, and be able to come up with a conclusion based on the data that you have. The goal is to go beyond knowing what has happened, okay, to providing a best assessment of what will happen in the future. So that is predictive data. On an important note, BPM users should ensure the accuracy of the data. Do you agree? Yep, very well. We need the accuracy of the data. Otherwise, if we don't have an accurate data, how can we have a valid result? Again, going back to the keyword garbage in, garbage out. If we get data that is not superior in nature, then we cannot expect that it will give us an accurate result in the future. Okay? The goal of the modeling phase is to manipulate variables such as time, cost, resources, and then try to understand the outcome. So it's like, playing or tweaking with your figures, with the numbers, and seeing from them, what is advantageous for the company, organization, or not. In this phase, stakeholders need to make a decision based on the potential outcome models should a process change be introduced. So that's gonna be an issue now in the model with so much designs, so much data available at your fingertip. You should now be thinking, wait a minute, do I need to change the process, or should I just skim the process? Okay, so that's modeling. The fourth is implement. Develop a detailed change management plan that outlines what specifically is changing. Okay, so you need to identify what processes will be changed, what will be retained, what will be enhanced. Okay? Keep in mind, this may include job descriptions and roles, right, of people within the organization, informing customers, suppliers, or updating systems. All of this, happen within that management plan that you should have come up with. Okay? Prepare a contingency plan as well. Well, no matter how well you plan things out, you have to understand that there are just some things that may not work properly. That's why this is where contingency plan is coming in. Because even the best ideas can falter during implementation. Yes? Do you agree? I agree with that. Even the best well-laid plans will go bonkers, right, in the implementation if not properly taken care of. That's why you need plan B, plan C. The fifth item is monitoring. BPM is intended to be an ongoing process. When we talk about ongoing process, it's a continuous improvement process. BPM practitioners should continuously, okay, this is what it means, assess the process during data modeling and simulation to consider possible outcomes. What will be the outcome of this process? So you need to identify, you need to monitor those outcomes. They should also benchmark performance against several data points, including any key performance indicators, employee feedback, and overall objectives. So in monitoring, benchmarking is also important. So for example, if a new process was to deliver a product to the customer 2 days earlier, okay, but the employee's feedback indicates achieving the goal requires substantial overtime, the process may need to be revisited. In one hand, process to deliver the product to the customer 2 days later, 2 days earlier than the generated outcome, right? But in reality, you need additional money, okay, or resources so that you can improve the performance of your process. Number 6 is to modify. In the modify phase, the process should be continually adjusted based on data to improve your outcome. So when you modify, again, the keyword here is continuous adjustment. If changes are required, the business case should be revisited and the 6-step phase cycle should begin again, starting from the assessment phase. So it has to repeat again. It has to begin again. So whatever needs to be modified can be modified. Whatever needs to be streamlined can be streamlined, so that you will have, a continually evolving business process. Okay, so that is what BPM is all about. Okay, so that is how we go into the BPM cycle. Alright. Next, we're going to talk about the BPM project resources. You need to allocate certain level of resources to your BPM project. Well, typically, these resources includes the basic. Since it is automated, we still have the hardware, the software, and the peopleware. Now, just a quick one. For software resources, software vendor license components individually or require additional software to support the BPM employment. So, some vendors, I think Microsoft will probably require you license components right? Or other licenses to support your deployment. BPM suits or BPM suites that are based on industry standard, like those from IBM, are more likely to be successfully deployed by using the existing infrastructure components of the organization. Most BPM vendors grow the ability to buy BPM at the departmental level and grow that license to the enterprise as the requirements grow. Now, what does this whole thing mean? It means that you have to choose your software wisely. You have to choose your software based on the needs of the organization. Okay, so that's very important that you need to have licenses. So you start small, then you let your license also grow as it includes more and more processes. So that is the software. Oh, by the way, in continuation, what are the 3 keys to consider when you're choosing a BPM software? Number 1, people. Okay? Are the people who are going to create the automated process BPM analysts, or are they common business users? You also need to consider the others who are going to be using the system. Okay? So if you want to start sending approval requests to the VP of marketing, will he be able to understand the interface? Does he need a mobile option for this? The answer to these questions will help you decide what kind of BPM system you will be needing. Okay, so people is the first one. Second is what we call the process. Analyze the problems you're looking to solve. Is it processing speed? Is it error reduction? Is it greater transparency or more automated tasks? Well, depending on your answer, you can go with something that works for most companies almost of the time. Or else, you're going to need more customized business process management. So that's also very important. And the third is the cost. The BPM software you choose needs to fit your budget. Simple as that. Okay, simple as that. No next words, no other. It has to be able to determine the budget that you have. Because aside from the cost of the platform, you need to consider if there are any additional costs or implementation or support or consulting that needs. Right. From software, we go to people resources. For people resources, make sure to plan for staff to handle your BPM implementation. Okay, simple as that. Plan your staff. Typically, these are the people that should hold our BPM project. You need a project manager, you need a subject matter expert, and you need 1 or 2 business analysts and 1 or 2 developers. So this core project team aligns the business and IT organizations to ensure project success. So more or less, you will be looking at 2, 4, 6 people resources for your BPM implementation. The small size of the project team demonstrates the productivity that BPM brings for delivering process improvement. Right? The mere fact that there are only 6 of them. Typically, you need more than 5 or 6 people on the team. Well, that's how it is. The BPM project team should be dedicated to ongoing BPM projects if you want to drive continuous process improvement. Your team doesn't just work on a single project and then disperse. You have to make sure that your team stays and your team will solidify themselves. Okay? Because in this scenario, guys, you just don't work on a single project. Remember, BPM, in a BPM environment, this is a continuous improvement of your processes. Right? So what happens now? Instead of dispersing, they use their expertise gained from the completed projects to help make your future BPM projects even more successful. Now, staffing your BPM team becomes an ongoing investment that grows and pays off as you add new processes. That's what I was talking earlier. So you need to take care of your people. Let them grow with the system. Let them grow with the process so that they will have an idea how they can manage the process even with their eyes closed. Okay, so that is what people resources is all about. Then we have hardware resources. In reality, your ongoing hardware needs for BPM project development are essentially comparable with other application deployment needs. Okay, so they're more or less the same. Okay, hardware specs, I did not put it here because you can actually get, a lot of hardware specs, but what I'm trying to explain is the context of the hardware resources. A BPM vendor provides you with the minimum hardware requirements, but it is unlikely that there will be any surprises in them. Okay, so that is what hardware resources is all about. Sir, it's too short. Yep. What would you expect? Because the hardware depends primarily on the setup, okay, of your business process preference. So it depends on the setup. Alright, last item, we're going to talk about how you can document your BPM process. In any BPM project, documentation plays a very large role. The documentation process actually begins at the very beginning of the project. Did you get that? The documentation process begins even long before choosing the proper BPM management software. It goes beyond picking the right team for your BPM, but rather documentation starts the moment, supposed to be, the ideal is the moment the business breathes its first air. Okay? So it has to have documentation. So when you're documenting changes, what do you need to do? Well, before you can begin your BPM project, some baseline measurements can help you see the changes that occur after the BPM is in place. So now you have this BPM baseline, okay, your BPM baseline. This is where you will implement the monitoring and management of selected core and enabling processes, what processes are vital, and what processes can be, tuned down, but it will still not have a large effect on the process of the business. Okay, so implement monitoring and management of selected core and enabling processes. Having a program such as Six Sigma functioning in your organization helps because this ability enables you to measure improvement directly. Also, in this way, you can gauge your process or your progress as well as measures the improvement. And also, BPM leverages programs like Six Sigma to add new value to the business. Okay, so that is very important. You have to keep in mind as you establish your baseline measurement system that there may not be a direct correlation between each of the process that exists before BPM and those that exist after BPM is implemented. So, in short, guys, you need to understand, you need to realize that your baseline measurement system may not have a direct correlation between the process that exists earlier. This lack of correlation between the processes comes about because BPM helps eliminate certain non-value added tasks. Now, in relation to the first statement, there might be processes that exist before the BPM, and then there may be processes that may be eliminated after the BPM is implemented. Why? Remember, when we have to understand that implementing a BPM may eliminate certain non-value added tasks, especially if you're running after Six Sigma or the Lean Six Sigma approach. Right? Again, what do we mean by Six Sigma? It's basically eliminating non-value approaches, okay, non-value tasks in the process. So once the BPM is implemented, there might be processes that be dissolved because they don't give value added components to the process. Okay, so that's very important. It is essentially a baseline for the next step in the process development and improvement. So it's very important that you need to document, because this documentation will now help you on the next steps, okay, in the process development. This document will help you go through the next improvement cycle of your processes. Right? So that's very important in documenting your changes. Then how do we understand the BPM architecture? To understand the BPM architecture, you have to understand that BPM has a particular structure. Okay, it has a particular architecture that greatly assists in the process documentation. What else? BPM architecture is intended to ensure that a company automates its business processes. Okay, simply as that. The architecture is there to make sure that you automate, you document your automated processes. It can be said that BPM architecture is a general definition of an entire system of processes. Right? So the architecture itself is the generic structure. It's like who you are. Example, if you look at your self, your architecture, you are unique in every way. You come from your father, your mother. At the same time, you function differently from your brothers or sisters. Why? Because it is your self is the general definition of your entire system processes. You're the product of your mother and your father, but yet you're different from your brothers or sisters. You're different from your classmates. You're different from other people. That is what architecture is all about. According to heflow.com, when defining BPM architecture, a company needs to make a connection between the team and the available workforce, as well as with the dominant resources and technologies to determine how to achieve strategic objectives as efficiently as possible, creating value at each stage of the chain. Okay, so if we look at this statement, heflow.com is one of the BPM companies aside from IBM. They said the company needs to make a connection between the team and available workforce. Okay, so what are these teams functioning? How do this workforce function? What are the dominant resources and technologies that we have right now? Okay, what are our strategic objectives? So it's very important that you need to understand the architecture. The intended use of a good BPM architecture is to improve processes and hence optimize results. Improve process, better results. It is also necessary that the BPM architecture contained in the BPM tool employed by your company will provide a full possibility of a system customization and meet the specific characteristics of its organization. What does this mean? It means, in context, that you need to understand the BPM architecture. For you to understand the BPM architecture, it must contain features that meet the whole life cycle of the process management in a comprehensive way that is from modeling from brainstorming up to monitoring. So your BPM architecture will specifically meet all the characteristics of your organization. That's what it means. Understanding the BPM architecture. Now, as we have mentioned earlier, a BPM architecture does not rely on software alone, right? It's not technology that we can just implement right away. In fact, if you look at the second bullet here, it says that it is necessary that the BPM architecture contained in the BPM tool employed provides what? A possibility of system customization. Okay. Be able to customize according to your needs, according to your requirements. This is where the requirements documents will come in. Okay. So that's how you understand. So there are stages, no? When you want to understand the BPM architecture, the process stages that must be performed, okay, must be performed by the BPM architecture are as follows. So you have your model processes, you have your model data, you have your formula defined, you have your business rules defined, you have your participants defined, you have your integrations defined, and then you can simulate the process, okay, even before implementation. Currently, BPM is strongly supported by what we call the BPM software and management tools. These two assist in the structuring of BPM architecture, and therefore it is vital that they contain these features. And what are these features? A visualization of the process, a simulation of the process, ability to monitor activity, the ability to create and use business rules, the integration of system and data, the possibility of carrying out workflow activities, and then the utilization of the BPM notation. The third component in the documentation of your BPM is, of course, how you can document your processes. Okay. In the BPM environment, process design and definition occurs within the graphical environment. So it's a nice thing about the BPM because we are going to use software that is graphical in nature. Okay, so if we have the opportunity, we can do this at the laboratory, right? We can actually use simple graphical models for this. Why? Because in most cases, process design tools allows business analysts to use drag and drop techniques. So simply put, you just have to, structure or analyze where to put certain process, what is the link to this certain process, and who is responsible. Remember the who, the what, and the why. The how, right? The who, the what, and the how of BPM, as we discussed earlier. Most BPM development tools use what we call a standard modeling notation. When we talk about standard modeling notation, it's a simplified programming language. Simply put, okay, it's a simplified programming language. Essentially, a process design looks very much like a flowchart, wherein processes are the boxes in the flowchart, and the business rules define the logic flow through the flowchart. So, if it's clear on your screen, but you can pause that later and look at it from that perspective. No? So it looks like a flowchart, okay? But instead of simply mathematical formula that you put in those diamonds or boxes, it's the process of documenting the business process. When you are documenting processes, it is an internal, ongoing documentation of the process. While it is occurring, documentation cares more about the how of the implementation rather than the what of the process impact. Doing so provides consistency for your organization. It allows you to monitor and revise processes as you go along. Now, process documentation is your roadmap. Okay, it helps you identify the current state of the process to know how you can improve it. Where are we at right now? How are we doing things right now? For example, on borrowing books in the library. If you can document that, okay, the process on how to borrow books in the library, I'm very sure that you can still streamline it. You can make it function in a way that it will guide you to your endpoint, to your finished process. So any tasks that is done more than once or completed by multiple people needs to be documented. You need to document that because, think about this way. Even highly skilled pilots who spend thousands of hours training and flying rely on pre-flight checklists. Even pilots, right? Because again, your documentation is your roadmap. You just don't rely on memory because there is no step that is considered too minute within your organization. Every process, every task, every steps count. Okay, otherwise, why are they there? Process documentation allows you to know what people are doing and gain insight into the inner workings of the company. Okay, so in the documenting process, this will give you an idea, who are the people working here, how do they do things their way, their department. Now, if you don't document process, essentially it is being redesigned by someone every time it is repeated. Do you understand this? If you don't document a process, right? Because simply you're trying to say, I know that already, but the next time somebody comes along, that person will have to redesign your process again. Okay? Why is that? Because when an employee leaves, any process knowledge lives with them, right? Especially if you've been working in that company for more than 10 years now. So when you live without documenting that, without properly documenting the process, when a new hire comes in, you need a documented process to help them understand their new role and how they fit within the overall organization. Otherwise, they'll be leaving confused. At the same time, you as the project manager or the leader will also be confused. So that's an issue there. Documented process facilitates formal training that allows for smooth onboarding. So if they have the manual, they know already their function, they will know what to do and how they will do it. Process documentation becomes especially crucial when dealing with projects working towards social change, as it focuses on reading or recording the perceptions and changes in the involved stakeholders. Today, our world consists of users who just want to get things done. Yes. They have so many things competing for their attention. They demand intuitive and task-based information, which is where process documentation becomes a key. Because now you don't have to run around in fear, not knowing what your next generation of workers will do in this new cycle, in this new approach. Okay, so you have to involve the recording of your documents as well as you can. So when you design or when you manage your processes in a proactive way, these are the results that you can expect. Okay? If you are documenting properly, okay, you can eliminate flaws. You can reduce the time spent on tasks. You can decrease the cost. You can decrease resources associated with tasks. You can improve efficiency. You can improve overall quality. You can increase customer and employee satisfaction. Wow. Looking at this, you can say that, BPM is really good in a way that it can offer us this much. Process documentation helps others to realize the changes in behavior and attitudes needed to produce desirable results, and it provides context for processes so that others can see how a project fits into the big picture and what its overall impact is. Again, process documentation provides a context so that others can see how your project fits into the bigger picture. Okay, so how the processes are done. Okay, so it has to be documented. So the process design is made up of various services and business rules. What is this, or what are this? The design begins with a collaboration between business analysts and development staff, right? And then the business people provide the definition. And the third one, the developers create the model using those definitions. Now, in some BPM implementation, business analysts may play a larger role in the whole design process. So you are now in the design stage. In the documentation of your processes, you have to understand that business rules are at the heart of the BPM project. Now, these rules are what we call the policies and the procedures that automate the business process. They are very important. In the BPM project, the business rules are managed by what we call rules engine, which is accessible to business managers. Now, you might ask, sir, ano na siya, or what is the rule engine? Well, the business rule engine is a software, a system that executes one or more rules of the business in a runtime production environment. Okay, so for example, if one of the rule is inform the customer by sending email, so definitely your system will have to send email to your customers. So as a result, it is much easier for managers to see and to change the business rules as needed if they are using the rules engine. To give you an idea what a rules engine is, let's look at this diagram. Again, it's a drag and drop diagram wherein the ability for business managers and other authorized users to change the rules in the rules engine is one of the keys to the agility provided by a BPM solution. Rather than having to redesign the whole process, by adding or changing an existing rule, the system can quickly be adapted to the changing conditions. All you have to do is, click, drag, or remove those yellow circles or the green or the blue to signify the movement of your processes. Okay. And of course, the last item is on how you do process simulation. BPM implementation allows you to test your process before going live with them. Correct. Now, this testing process is called simulation. In simulation, you run the processes through what-if scenarios. So you can make adjustments and fine-tune your model. So what if is, again, playing a vital role in the evaluation of your processes, or especially in the simulation of your processes. Business process simulation is the analysis and the experimentation of a business process in a virtual environment without all the risks and problems that can arise by testing something in a live environment. Again, making sure that it works well. The simulation is very important because now it will help you see the bigger picture without putting you at risk in the real world. Okay, so that is how simulation is done. With a simulated environment, there are no risks of a process crashing and halting productivity in the office. So it eliminates wastage of process or erasure of those processes. With business process simulation, you're assured of having a stable environment where you can work with different ideas and implementations to see what sticks and what doesn't. So in the simulation, you can actually play around with your variables, with your data, without affecting the real context of the organization. You don't need to be afraid. In a simulation environment, you don't need to be afraid because you can always work on a radical idea that has not been tested before. see if it will work or not. Compared to the real world, I have this radical idea, I want to implement this, and only to find out it fails. That's gonna be a different reaction of the management and your colleagues. So simulation is very important. This is the advantage that business process simulation modeling gives the user: a safe environment where new features and processes and the ideas can be tested without having to worry about impacting productivity in the workplace. A business process simulation is the ideal path. How do we choose process simulation? When you want to significantly change the process but don't know the results, simulation is the answer. If you are working with a mission critical process that cannot be stopped, okay? So again, simulation is important. The third reason why business process simulation is ideal is when you want real data on how a process might perform in a certain condition without destroying the actual data itself. So these are the three ideal paths that you will be taking if you want to have a successful business process simulation. What are the steps in business process simulation? Well, the first one is decide on the metrics that you will use to evaluate. What do we mean by this? Do you hope the new process is faster, saves money, results in fewer errors, collects specific data on the existing process? So you'll have to have your own metrics. So for example, in our class, how do I check or how do I record your grade? In essay, for example, we have a specific metrics for that. Rules in that matter on how to score your work. Okay, so you have to decide on the metrics. Second, you need to select a business process modeling tool. Choose one that has an easy drag and drop interface and doesn't require complex coding. Okay, so business process modeling tool is most likely an automated system. Design the improved process. What is that? Make the necessary changes to your existing process and create the optimal solution. Okay, so design the improved process. The fourth is run the business process simulation. Collect the necessary data to prove your hypothesis. Then, of course, decide what to implement in the new process. Make any changes to your existing processes based on the results so you can actually move them. This is what it's all about. Process simulation is one of the iterative steps in the development of an effective BPM. Typically, you discover the importance of analyzing the results of the simulation. Make any necessary changes and rerun the simulation, possibly several times. Your BPM models provide the agility for you to continue and make improvements even after you've gone live with your implementation. Okay, that's the nice thing. You don't have to test it endlessly. You just have to make sure, just like the vaccine that we have right now, they don't have to wait for it to reach 100% on 100 population level for them to say that the vaccine works. Like Pfizer, for example, I think they're ready to market their vaccine for COVID even at 95% effectivity rate. Right? You don't need to test it endlessly, otherwise you won't get it off the ground. It is often better to plan for some continuous tweaking once the BPM system is in place, which means that in a process simulation, you have to have room for tweaking. Alright? Because as I have said, even if the BPM model is already live, you would still have room for improvement in it. You would still be able to simulate and run your improvements. Okay, so with that, that ends our discussion on implementing the BPM to your organization. So do you have any questions? Feel free to ask me through our messenger or through SMS. Thank you. And so there you have it. The end of our discussion for how we can, put our BPM to work for organization. I hope you have, picked a little bit more of information on, how BPM can really be implemented in your organization. And I hope someday, before you would really consider BPM, you would consider this video lecture of ours, so that you'll have an idea, a wide array of idea on how you can implement BPM for your organization. So again, with that, we end our third discussion for this week. And as I always say, stay safe, and God bless you. I will see you next session. Okay? Have a nice day.